Hey, YouTube, Puff and Snuff here. Ian checking in as always from beautiful Northeast Ohio. Thought I'd jump on and do a quick little snooze review for you guys today. Um, you know, with the tobacco hobby, whether we're talking snooze or snuff or pipes or cigars or whatever, sometimes there's a product that the description, the reviews, word of mouth from people you know make you think that it is right up your alley. And then you try it and it really falls flat and disappoints. Then there are other products that you read a little bit about them, and it does not sound like your kind of thing at all. It's out of your comfort zone, or it's something that you believe you will not like, and then you try it and it's fantastic. That second category is where this stuff falls for me. Never thought I would really enjoy this, um, but it's terrific. So we are talking. If we can get this to focus, uh, we are talking about Jakobsson's Fläder. Um, this is a portion snooze. The packaging has kind of a maritime nautical theme about it. Obviously, there's a ship on the front. Also, you can see here on the can we have the compass points. This will be trickier to see, but inside the convenience pouch there, you can kind of catch it. There's a little bit of a compass rose in there, so it's very much a it's a compass. It's a nautical themed kind of thing. The color green too is uh, fairly important because I think green is probably the best way to describe what's going on in here. Otherwise, fairly typical tin, which I've got all sorts of turned around. Get that lined up so you can see what we're doing here. Again, continuing with the maritime naval sort of thing. And there we go. And then on the bottom, of course, you've got all the warnings and all that stuff. So the one thing I will say about this uh, is that the convenience slot down here, it's fairly shallow and it's a fairly small diameter, so you can't fit a whole lot of spent portions in here. Which for me, I don't. To be honest, I don't make a whole lot of use of this. Usually, I'm around a trash can where I can discreetly get rid of a used portion. But for those who rely on having that utility, um, it's not as big, I think, as it could be. But that's probably the least important part of a snooze. So if we crack the tin open here and give it a smell, it is it's a sweet, fruity, slightly herbaceous smell. Um, you don't really get a lot of tobacco scent coming out of the can here. Um, what you get is everything other than tobacco. And at this point, as I'm opening this for the first time, when I got the tin, I'm thinking, oh boy, my suspicions were right because I'm a big tobacco guy, right? I like to taste the tobacco or smell the tobacco in the product that I'm using. Everything else should enhance the tobacco, not cover it up. So at this point, I'm thinking, well, here we go again. It's kind of going to be, Anglo-Home 2.0 for me. But it's worth giving a shot. Anyway, and so the pouch itself, uh, this is not a white pouch. Let's see if we can get a little better. There we go. Um, it's certainly not a white portion. It is more moist than that, but it is when you squeeze it, there is a little bit of moisture in there, but it's not overly moist. And right out of the can, it is relatively fluffy. There's not a whole lot of manipulation that you have to do to kind of get that soft and pillowy. So we'll get this in, and I am um, virtually done with this tin. So um, not perfectly comfortable right away. It does take just a little bit of moisture to really get where you need it to be, but not a lot. Um, this snooze is apparently elderflower. Now, being an American who has not traveled to Europe in 15 years, 17 years, something like that. And to the best of my knowledge, I've never had anything elderflower, with the exception of an elderflower liqueur. And since I've never experienced true elderflower, how the hell do I know if the liqueur is at all a fair representation? Um, so, disclaimer here, obviously, I am not the least bit qualified to kind of talk about this as an elderflower snooze. So, um, I would, if that's what you're looking for, do a search bar and look for some of the folks over in Europe, particularly Scandinavia. And if they've got reviews of this stuff, they'll know what they're talking about, regarding the authenticity. However, um, I am more than comfortable discussing it in terms I'm familiar with. So if you're in the U.S., um, chances are you're also not uh, greatly experienced with elderflower, so these terms will probably be more familiar to you. So let's carry on. Um, it's tart. The first thing you get out of this is a tartness that is not dissimilar to a Granny Smith apple. It's not overly tart. It's not overly sour. Um, but yeah, it's in there, and it works very well because there's also a sweetness that underlies that. If I had to take and try to describe the overall flavor of this thing, and understand, I'm not suggesting here that I can taste all of these things. I'm saying that kind of the flavor as a whole reminds me of some combination of something, a tart green apple with a semi-sweet pear, something slightly citric, um, not specifically lemon, not specifically lime, certainly not bergamot, um, but something citric, and something heathery, something herbaceous, something lightly floral. So it's kind of all of these things. There's the floral component with the sweetness and the tartness and the fruity character of it. And it really works. What surprises me, though, is that I think it works because I get very little tobacco flavor out of this. Virtually none, to be honest. Um, the tobacco base in this appears to serve no purpose other than one, a media upon which to build the flavor, and two, a way to get nicotine. But it's bringing no specific flavor of its own. No pepperiness at all to speak of, which is probably a good thing. I don't think that a peppery kind of tobacco would at all enhance the flavor. There is a fair bit of salt added to this, or at least saltiness, which is not a bad thing in this case. It is, to me, it tastes saltier than most other snoozes that I've had, but you almost need that because it perfectly balances, the amount of salt in here perfectly balances the sweetness and the tartness and the floral and all of those other things we talked about. So it really, really works. Um, Being someone that really, really prefers tobacco in their tobacco, it surprises me that I like this as much as I do, but it's very good. A few other notes about this. One, as it stays in the lip, and obviously I've had this in for 3 minutes, but I've carried this for as long as an hour, hour and a half. Once you hit about the 20-minute mark to the half-hour mark, um, the flavor becomes quite flat, which is not to say bad. But when you first put this in, it's very bright. It's it's very fresh. Okay, um, it feels authentic. It feels like what it's supposed to be. I assume, but it's very a fresh, bright, kind of uplifting flavor to it. And then it just kind of goes flat, and it stays very one-dimensional. And once it's been in for a while. You can still taste it, but it's duller. It's a little more subdued. Um, and without the tobacco base at that point to kind of stand up on its own and offer something, it kind of becomes very, uh, very monotone, I guess, for lack of a better word. Um, which is not a bad tone, so it's not entirely a criticism, but it can get a little boring, to be honest. I don't know that I would ever again buy a can and use it exclusively until the can was spent. I would need something to kind of break up the monotony. I would say that this, obviously, I don't know when I will actually upload this to be viewed. I am recording this in the middle of January. Uh, I would like to revisit this stuff in the springtime or in the summer. And I think because of the light character, because of the fruity and citrusy and herbal character of this, I think this would be a very good seasonal snooze, um, particularly in the warmer months. So worth revisiting for sure. But on its own, any time of year, it's not bad. Um, Again, judging this only based on my own tastes and having no personal experience with elderflower itself, I give this a solid 7 out of 10. Um, and I just wish there was just a little bit of tobacco character in there, just to kind of support the whole thing once it's been in the lip for a while and the toppings and the flavorings kind of mellow. So, guys, that is all for me. I really feel like I rambled my way through this one. Um, if I had another portion, I might even re-record this damn thing. So I apologize for the quality of this review, but do check it out. Forget my review. Go do your own. See what you think about Jakobsson's Fläder. Otherwise, that is all from you guys. Take it easy.